All right, welcome to the show. Chris Graham here, and we got Josh Deal. Chris and Josh, we're back together. It's been a few months, few years, whatever it's been, Josh. We're going to talk some wrestling, and this is going to become a regular thing again, which is going to be
Hmm.
great. Josh, hey man, first off, update us. It's been a little while. It's been a minute, as the kids say.
Sure.
What have you
Which
been
kids?
doing in wrestling the last couple of years, last few years?
I've been a fan, of course, still, and I've backed off on my normal fandom duties. I have not been, the avid consumer that I once was. But it's Mania season, so you know, everybody. It's Christmas Eve, it's Easter, it's Thanksgiving for all of us wrestling nerds. Um, but I shoehorned my way into the business a little bit. There's a promotion here in Athens, Georgia, called Classic City Wrestling. Been picking up some steam, and I am the commentator. I'm the lead guy for that. I've been doing commentary since day one, since June of 2022, with Classic City Wrestling was the first time we rolled out. I've called matches for Ricky Morton. I've called matches for Alex Kane. I've called matches for Effie. Um, and then just Rico Gonzalez. He's another name that's coming up in through GCW and Effie's Big Gay Brunch and those kinds of spots. So it's a really cool thing to be in a situation to be there at the ground floor and at the cusp of so many guys, that could take that next step. It's been really fun to have that role and just go and yell into a microphone and raise hell at a bar and just pretend like I'm somebody in the wrestling business for a minute.
I could tell the voice, and also, so for the people who are listening but not watching, if you're just listening on the podcast, I am admiring Josh's background, which includes a lot of memorabilia behind you. That's pretty awesome back there.
Yeah, yeah. So I've picked up the bad habit of collecting wrestling toys. So but it's fun. It's really fun. It's something I didn't do in my younger years. The toys weren't as awesome when I was a kid and in the 90s and early 2000s. But now I mean they're just amazing. I've got Terry Funks, I've got Stings, I've got a couple of nice rare AEWs back there. So and for Mania season, I picked up a knockoff, Winged Eagle, Stone Cold edition. Still has the block logo and stuff. It's straight from Pakistan, but it's awesome. I love it.
That's
So
great. That's it's it, now that we're adults and we can afford this stuff. I couldn't afford it as a kid either, and there wasn't a lot out there, like you said, back in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, now is the time to be a kid again. So that's pretty good.
it is. What about yourself? Where's the wrestling world taken you, or has the wrestling world taken you anywhere or done anything with you?
No, not. I mean, we got out of the business. I say we because I dragged my wife into it. My wife, who I've been married to, this is the 20. This year will be 24 years. When we first started dating 25 years ago, um, I was able to bravely turn on a Monday Night Raw, and she said, "You watch this crap." We went from that to working in the business together. I dragged her in. She
Sure.
did all the books and the sponsor sales and all the
She was
business
the
stuff.
financial.
Yeah, she made the money work while I was having the fun of booking and the creative and all that stuff with a couple of companies, including one that was called AWE, Awesome Wrestling Entertainment, that put on a pay-per-view back in 2011. We did some live shows for a few years after that, mostly local to the Waynesboro, Charlottesville area in Virginia. But that's been a little while. As fun as all that was, and it was a ton of fun. The creative part, the booking part, the working with the guys part. I mean, you mentioned a couple names: Ricky Morton, Terry Funk, were some guys I worked with. Kevin Nash a few times. I mean, you see a Shawn Michaels poster. If you're watching this, you see that behind me. Um, got to work with some of the big names in the business, but that was the fun part. The scary part was, are we going to lose the house if this show doesn't do well? Um,
That's
can
a
we pay the
different level.
mortgage if this show doesn't sell?
Yeah, yeah, that's you're no longer a fan. You're no longer having fun. You're in it to win it for sure.
Yeah.
There's a solid outcome that has to happen. That's where wrestling does become real in those elements.
So I don't miss that part. I do miss from time to time, I mean, certainly the fun of the night of a show. I mean, the night even before a show when you'd have the
Hmm.
guys coming in town and we're all going over the card the next night, and the day of when you're putting the ring up, and
Yeah.
the people start coming through the turnstiles and all that stuff. But then, yeah, doing the book work and the trying to get in good with the wife again. Okay, honey, that time we didn't lose money. It was a lot of work, but I promise you this time we will make money.
It's
No,
so
I don't miss
fun.
all
It's
that.
worth it. Yeah. No, it's a lot. Yeah, even on my end of it, doing the ring and greeting everybody and making sure everybody's in their spots and everybody, knows their marching orders for the night. It's a ton, even just as a commentator and somebody that, does a little bit of the legwork on putting the show together, not really full on booking, but I've, dabbled. And they ask my opinion, so I tell them what I think, and sometimes they listen. Most of the time,
I've
they're
lent my
pros. They don't.
voice. I've lent my voice a couple times to be a commentator
Hmm.
in my post promoting era, and yeah, I do. I mean, of course, I mean, for me, I was fortunate to be able to do work with ESPN Plus for several years as a. Now, this is the
Hmm.
funny thing. I'll tell you, I did baseball, basketball, some football for ESPN Plus, college sports. But they asked me one time to fill in. They said, and I ended up filling in for this job for 3 years. But they asked me to fill in as their the SoCon Southern Conference wrestling commentator. So I'm like, now I've done wrestling, but not this wrestling before.
Nah,
So
not the Greco. Yeah, yeah, all the leotards and the
yeah,
headgear kind of stuff.
and all the scoring and all that stuff. So I had to really educate myself on that, and and remind myself nobody's going to come out with a steel chair. There's nobody going through a table here. And
Not yet.
yeah,
They
yeah.
might get desperate, man. That'd be a good TV product
I think it would be a lot better TV product anyway. But no, it was fun. It was fun to do that. But yeah, it's a lot better on that side of the business when you can just go home at night after the show's over. Definitely.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, the wrestling business is so fun, and there's so much community in it, and of course, it's addicting in its own way because everybody's so positive at the shows, and there's just all this energy going forward toward putting on a good show, entertaining, hitting your marks, just pulling it off takes a lot of effort, whether it's good or not, and it still takes a lot of work.
And
But yeah, man, I love
I'll
it. I love being about.
And I'll say, I mean, I haven't been to one of our like the shows like you've been to the local shows in quite a
Hmm.
while. The shows that we used to put on, I miss that environment where the crowd. I mean, yeah, when a crowd comes to a local like high school gym or whatever kind of show like that, I mean, they're there. You can feel the ring move when it moves. You can
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
wrestlers when they're in the ring, they use a microphone, but they don't need to. You're that close to them. There's always an autograph signing before you get to hang out with the guys after, whatever the case may be. My
Yeah.
most recent show was I was at the big AEW Revolution show in Greensboro Coliseum last month. And I still, though, I gotta say this, Josh, when I go to a show like that, there's 16,000 people in an arena. I'm still thinking like the promoter. I'm still thinking, man, what did they do to make all this happen? And
Hmm.
I'm critiquing in my head like, okay, they could have done this better, they could have done that better, or I'm also thinking, man, I wish I'd have thought of that. That's pretty good. So, but I'm
Sure.
still thinking in that business sense.
Yeah, it's hard to turn it off. It really is just to enjoy the product, just to turn your brain off and to be a fan. And that's part of one of the reasons. Hey, maybe a good segue. That I love WrestleMania season so much because it is easy. Sorry, it is so easy during WrestleMania season, WrestleMania weekend. Now, I actually love that it's a weekend. It's a huge event versus just a pay-per-view event. Um, yeah, it's the whole world is watching and it's bigger than life. And they put millions of dollars into this one show to make it the most incredible looking, the most over the top thing that you can imagine on a TV screen. I haven't been to one yet. It's a goal. But yeah, for as far as just a TV product and something just to be a fan of, and man, there's nothing like WrestleMania season. It doesn't even matter if you watch it year round. It's still something that draws me in and makes me remember what it is to be a fan and just be entertained, instead of criticizing or critiquing or having a critical eye to it. Just try to enjoy the damn thing because it is so much fun and it is put on just for us. Um, and you can take it anywhere you want to, as far as how you consume a product. But for me, WrestleMania, take it as it is, take it as it's presented, and let the story speak to you. Let the characters come through the screen, because they can. There are fantastic performers. There's no doubt about it. And WrestleMania is it's what makes the wrestling world go around. I think I know 15 or 20 people up there right now, or that have been up there this week. That it circles even the independent scene. And for the past 10 or 15 years, WrestleMania is so much bigger than WWE. Even it is the independent scene. There's so many businesses. There's so many companies and performers that if they don't do anything else in a year, they're the highlight of everybody's year is WrestleMania. That's just the way the wrestling world works.
Yeah, I'll be one of those
Uh,
guys. I'm one of those fans who subscribes to too many things.
mm-hmm.
I'll be watching the Ring of Honor Supercard. I can't even tell you who's on the card. I know it's tomorrow night, and I'll be watching that, and then of course both nights of WrestleMania. But I'm looking here at the weather forecast, Josh, and so when you said something about
Oh
how you
yeah.
haven't been to one, and I'm thinking you're south of me. Usually these events are held in outdoor stadiums in warm places. They're
Mm-hmm.
in an outdoor stadium closer to me. Philadelphia is about 3.5 hours north of where I am. It's cold this weekend where I am.
It's
Uh,
extremely cold. The Northeast has gotten well, even over in Chicago, the Braves have been interrupted a couple of times already because of weather. But yeah, it's Philadelphia. They're in for a hard weekend for weather, and trying to pull this damn thing off is going to be it's going to be interesting. It's going to be I think it's probably going to be the most stressful weather wise WrestleMania that WWE has had. So,
they had one in New York, one of the two nighters in New York a few years ago, and they were worried all year about that. I think the weather turned out to be fine there. 53 is the high in Philadelphia on Saturday, the high,
yeah,
and
very high.
55 on Sunday. Now these shows
So
are
high.
night shows, so
And
oh
it's windy.
man,
It gets windy at night,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're right on the coast, so it's going to be a cold. So hopefully they'll have some heaters and whatnot, and hopefully like I was looking at the forecast maybe a few days ago. This is old news now, but there was a chance of some scattered showers at one point this week in Philadelphia, but that seems to be not the case anymore. But
Look,
we're a bunch of old dudes talking.
the low temperature Saturday night is 38 with 23-mile-an-hour wind gusts.
Good God.
Sunday, high again of 55, low of 34, only 13-mile-an-hour winds. So, yeah, um,
Look at this a bunch of old men talking about the weather, but I mean it does matter. It does
it
matter.
does. This is an outdoor event. Now, next weekend, it's in the 70s in Philadelphia, so we just missed it by a week. But so there's that aspect. Weather forecast. You don't think about that much with wrestling. Okay, so the focus is, I mean, there's a lot of matches on both nights, of course, but the
Yeah.
focus, as has been the case really for a couple of years, has been on the storyline involving Cody Rhodes, the babyface, and then of course the
Hmm.
bloodline with Roman Reigns as the leader, the head of the table, the leader of that group. And okay, so going into last year's WrestleMania, it seemed like things were headed towards a Cody Rhodes finishing the story, kind of finished, didn't get that. Okay, year two now. The
Yeah.
rematch. What do you think? If you're booking one maybe, and then second, whether you're booking or not, how you think it's going to go? How do you think this weekend plays out?
I mean, well, we go rewind a year ago. It seemed the only logical choice was for Cody to go over a year ago. And I find myself, I think like most everybody in the wrestling world, we find ourselves back at that place. Um, Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen. Nobody knows exactly how this is going to go down. There's the night one stipulation that causes, run-in possibilities and or what happens, who gets the advantage, all this other malarkey. But I think what we're going to see on night two is a lot of run-ins, a lot of interference, a lot of things that will save face for whoever loses the match. And it's a great opportunity for a lot of people to show up and make some guest appearances. You look up and down the card right now. There's some big names in the company that in WWE and WWE history that are not listed on this card right now. Two that stand out the most to me are John Cena and CM Punk. Um, in my fantasy booking world, when CM Punk came back, that was the match. If you're going to book any match at Mania, Cena versus CM Punk was the match of matches for this coming year outside of the world title match. But we're not getting that. We're not getting either one of them. However, both of these men do have some sort of a connection. CM Punk roundabout way to Roman Reigns via The Rock. John Cena, of course, he is the never say die good guy who now is Cody Rhodes, the ultimate baby face, the baby face of baby faces. Sting meets John Cena meets Hulk Hogan 1988. Like he is the biggest baby face of all time. Oh man, I'm dancing around an answer to your question because it does seem so obvious that Cody wins the match. I
I'll
think if he
throw in that CM Punk let slip on his interview with Ariel Helwani this week on the MMA podcast that he is healthy again. Now he said that he said that
healthy,
WWE is taking its time with him, but he
yeah,
did indicate that so I just
he
will
was
say
wearing the thing. I saw that he was wearing the whole like Stone Cold get up on his arm,
yeah,
wasn't he?
he was, but I guess what he's indicating is that he. So I think he may have let slip that he could be a participant this weekend. When I say healthy
Yeah,
again, they're still going to take their time. He did say this too. They're going to take their time with him. Unlike he felt like AEW, it was one of his little slings at
well,
AEW there. But
it's
that he feels like he
AEW
was
and
treated better
himself,
there,
but
basically.
yeah, well, we can. It's all intertangled, intertwined because uh, both of these factors are related to each other. That is really surprising that CM Punk is says he's ready to go. Man, that cast looks serious. That cast
Well,
looks like
ready to go, but also also I mean, from the standpoint of booking, I mean,
I would have him come out if he can. I would say
if he
if
can, yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah if it's not going to be risking his long term functionality of that arm, yeah. I mean his
Even if he just does something that's insignificant, but he's still CM Punk. I mean, just to
yeah
intervene in some way. Yeah.
some sort of like, yeah, just come out. Especially, of course, I think he's doing like the host role or whatever of
Yeah.
Mania. We're gonna see Punk. His music's gonna hit a few times over the weekend. There's no
It's
doubt
got
about that.
to. It's got to.
Yeah,
So you're leaning toward. I mean, it sounded. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you when I cut you off, you were saying, um, Cody going over this weekend is your feeling
I
or
think I think I think if no other if it made sense story wise to keep the belt on Roman, yeah, I would say then I don't have a clear cut choice. But if they don't put the belt on Cody this time, they're going to risk putting in Cody in the same situation that he was in with AEW and that stupid no world title thing. Uh, I think you would kill all of Cody's momentum. I think he's a merchandise machine right now. If you put the belt on that guy for the next 6 months to a year, you're going to print a lot of T-shirts and you're going to sell them and you're going to make a lot of toys and you're going to sell them if he is the guy. Because now, if they keep The Rock heel for the next 6 months, 9 months, there's two main events you've got right there. You've got a Saudi Arabia main event, no problem, with The Rock versus Cody, and then maybe you have a SummerSlam or Survivor Series main event with Cody and The Rock. I think that's big. And then you give Roman a long time off. I think he's deserved it. I think he deserves it. I think the business could use his absence, and that's not a knock against him. I say that because it would be him go. He goes away for a quarter, for a TV quarter, and then comes back. You've got a different character. You could do something else with that character, and you could start printing Roman Reigns T-shirts and selling them more again. And that would be like when Triple H came back. Was it 2002, 2003? Came back as a heel, but it was a massive return. Um, so that would be. If you're asking me what I think the smart play is, Cody gets the belt. Roman disappears for a few months, and then you start playing a little bit off of The Rock as the new CEO asshole boss of WWE, right? He keeps on fucking with Cody for whatever reason and throwing opponents, Manchurian candidates at Cody to keep the storylines going. And then maybe you revisit it with Roman. I don't know. Maybe you have Solo and Cody go at it. Maybe you bring you raise up another competitor, such as a Karrion Cross or such as an Eli, not Eli Drake, but
L.A.
L.A.
Knight,
Knight,
they call him there.
L.A.
Yeah.
Knight, yeah. Somebody, I think L.A.
I've loved him since he was since he was Eli Drake all those years ago. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's still. I'm looking at. And here's the thing. I'm cheating because my memory. I'm 40 years old now. My memory's not so great. But it's they've got L.A. Knight versus AJ Styles looking face to face. That is Impact Wrestling, in a nutshell. That's one of the greatest matchups that they could have called back from the Impact era. Maybe even like a Drew McIntyre versus LA Knight you could call a TNA Wrestling Impact callback. But if you're asking me, I think the smart play, and I do want to see it. I'm a fan. And trying to take the promoter hat or like, this is the smart guy wrestling, whatever. Take the money out of it. I want to see Cody as champion. I want to see him have that role as the Never Say Die, the Hulk Hogan Sting good guy, badass world champion. I think he fits that role. I will admit, I thought it was a huge mistake for WWE to bring him in. I thought his time, his value was done in AEW. I thought he screwed the pooch. I thought they booked him into such a mediocre role. He was just going to be, another jobber. He would get a nice pop at Mania, but then he would go off into mid card world. I was very wrong. He's they've done a fantastic job with Cody Rhodes, making him the new ultimate babyface main eventer. He might be the best babyface main eventer since Sting. I can't really even think of somebody that maybe it's Cena. I mean, Cena's had his moments, but Cody Rhodes is the most pure white meat babyface contender that I can ever think of, and he's really good. But it's not cheesy. It's just he's just a good character, and he's good at telling that story and presenting that character and pulling it off as well. Being sympathetic, but also able to fight.
so I'll put the business hat on then and say so. A couple of concerns I got, and as the fan in me says Cody needs to win. I was mad last year when he didn't win.
Oh yeah,
I swore off WWE for months when he didn't win last year as the fan, but as the business person, I can understand. I think I can understand. At least I can make the argument as to why last year didn't happen the way a lot of us want it to happen, and why,
yeah,
if he doesn't win Sunday night, why that might be. The concerns would be one, WWE has followed the model that the NWA used to use way back in the territory days of having a heel champion and then throwing babyface challengers at that heel champion. And Roman Reigns has been the champ for 3.5 years.
yeah.
Now, WWF and WWF uh, gave the other model, Bruno Sammartino, Pedro Morales, a brief run with Superstar Billy Graham as a heel, but then Bob Backlund, then Hulk Hogan, where you had the babyface champion, and then you would throw heels at him, and that's how they made their money for all those years. But since about the mid 2010s, you've seen WWE with Brock Lesnar, now Roman Reigns, primarily with a heel, and Seth Rollins, I guess, there for a while, primarily a heel
yeah.
champion. And then you have a babyface run. You have a Daniel Bryan. You have now Roman Reigns there for a while with Brock Lesnar, and now that Roman Reigns is the heel, you've had Cody the last couple of years. And so there's that factor. Do you flip your model to go that way? And then the other is the bloodline has been so good for business. I'm not saying that, yes, people can get tired of things, and it's been 3.5 years, and we can easily get tired of this. But
Yeah.
if you're Endeavor, if you're TKO, and you're not wrestling people, I mean, above now, because Vince is gone, Triple H obviously still there. There's other people who are wrestling people who are at the controls. But if you're if you're the people above those people, and you say, man, we've been making all this money, we got these Buffo TV ratings, why
Mm-hmm.
would we change anything? And so if something doesn't happen this weekend that we want to see happen, I think that's probably why.
I can think of one huge reason why Roman Reigns wins this weekend. Um, this year is a crossroads of all kinds of pop culture anomalies that are happening at one time in 1 year. For me personally, this means a lot. This is the 40th anniversary of Eastman and Laird creating the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So they're 40 years old this year. I'm 40 years old. I will be 40 years old in September. But bring it back to wrestling, WrestleMania, Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania, 40 years old this year. So where is Roman Reigns on that timeline? So for Roman Reigns, he's as close to anyone has been to breaking Hogan's record since Lesnar held it for like a year and a half, 2 years at one point in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Um, if you are TKO and especially with all the Vince shit that's happened in the past 6 months or so, and Hogan has a checkered past with racial stuff, and then some things have slipped out, and then he's not the best spokesperson for the company, or he's not the best legendary figure that they have anymore, because there is so much baggage there. Let's say you do keep the belt on Roman Reigns until I think he would have to make it to Survivor Series as champion to surpass Hulk Hogan. What do you do then? You surpass Hulk Hogan. You put the past to bed in a way. You are Hank Aaron beating Babe Ruth's record. You are a brown man surpassing a white man that has some checkered past, and TKO can move past that and can put some of that imagery in the past and say that our great WWE's greatest champion of all time by the numbers would be Roman Reigns. And you would have an amazing marketing opportunity as well, just aside from all those factors, to say that we're living in the greatest era. We were living in the era of the greatest WWE champion of all time, Roman Reigns. I that's a big thing to do. That's still, Survivor Series is in November. That's a long ways off. But the man's only defended the belt like 60 something times in the past 3 years, anyways. So it's very doable. So he would really only have to make three or four more defenses
Mhm.
uh, at this rate to beat Hogan, to surpass Hogan as the longest reigning modern era WWE WWF champion of all time, and what we could really call the WrestleMania era.
WrestleMania era, yeah.
Uh,
Very well put.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And what then you could do, because I see this either way. If Cody wins, I don't put Roman Reigns and the bloodline away. I would play out if it was me. Now I'm fantasy booking, but if I'm fantasy booking and Cody's champ, I have it happen somehow where there's something that happens in that match Sunday night where Rock either intentionally or inadvertently aids Cody to win that, and
yeah,
yet stays on the same side, stays in the bloodline, and then there's that tension between those two that plays out towards SummerSlam and maybe plays towards
sure.
next year's WrestleMania. And if you keep the
And you could
belt,
you could turn Roman in the match. You could turn Roman.
yeah,
Roman could turn face this weekend.
yeah, yeah, face
And
turn,
that
and hey, we've seen it before, a double turn, even though you wouldn't do that with Cody because he's so popular,
no, no,
but
no.
But okay, but if you don't take the belt off of Roman, and you could still, I mean, you still could keep The Rock around, and you would want to, and then play those two for a year to next year's WrestleMania. Now, what
Sure.
happens then is Cody is buried, like you said. That
Yeah.
that story's gone.
I don't see how Cody doesn't, and this might be kind of weak sauce, but I don't see how you keep Cody's momentum and keep him as a true viable main eventer without one of those belts on his waist coming out of WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah,
They
I
can, there's
agree.
ways to, there's ways to there is a way to split up the Universal Champion, the Undisputed Championship. It's still called the Undisputed Championship. Both of those belts are still making appearances on TV. There's a way to do it. So is that possible too? I don't know. Yes, it is. it would be kind of hokey. I think it would be kind of anticlimactic. Then we'd have like three world champions, going on. But WWE's done weirder stuff in the past than having three world champions and splitting and having Roman continue his march towards that that unbelievable history mark of surpassing Hogan's 4 year title run. So
So, there's the fun part of this to me, is that, okay, so a lot of times we go into a big show and we think this is where it's going to go. It's going to happen this way, and all we're
mm-hmm,
doing is waiting for the coronation to happen. The
sure,
fun part here is, I mean, we're going into WrestleMania weekend. We really have no idea what they're going to do, and I think that's awesome.
it is fun. It's really fun, and I do think that us the wrestling public expecting Cody to walk out of there as champion, it gives WWE all the creative leverage in the world because either way, it's a win-win for them. And if the next night on Monday Night Raw, it would be a boo fest. Everybody's just going to be angry. Everybody's going to be angry for weeks
Yeah.
if Cody doesn't win. They can play with it like that, but for him not to win and still be a viable main eventer and a contender for the WWE Championship, oof, man, that is that's a tough spot to put yourself in. That's a really tough spot to put yourself
It is. It
in.
is. They've been booking him for 2 years, even before his injury. From the time he got back from AEW, before his first injury, he's been booked to be in this direction. And so,
Sure,
yeah, it'd be hard to it's hard to imagine a future for him after WrestleMania without being a title contender. It would be like his
or
last
champion.
3.5 year or 2.5 years in AEW, which, as you mentioned, was,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That was
I'd
bad.
like to think he was at least on paper an executive vice president there, but so whether he helped book himself into a corner, it was their,
He
it
had
was,
to have.
well, it was their November pay-per-view in 2019. I mean, he could not contend for the
Yeah.
title anymore. So that was dumb. And this would be
It would be.
equally constraining.
I think it would be extremely constraining for him in his WWE career. I have no idea what they would do. Okay, so we have circled that topic a
Yes.
couple times. So now something I've been looking at this card is there's a lot of upside to it, and then there's some head scratchers to it. So I'll start off with the two matches, like just in ring product that I think will be next level. Of course, Sami Zayn uh, versus Gunther is going to be an instant classic. That has all the makings of potentially the greatest Intercontinental Championship match of all time. These Both of these guys are incredible athletes, no quit. They will fight and can fight until their chest is bleeding and there's their energy. There's no way they should get up. Like even in wrestling terms, I mean, I get that it's staged, but these two guys, these are workhorses. I would love it if that match went for an hour, and I would be satisfied if it was no DQ. But I think that's going to be that to me is going to be the match of matches for WrestleMania 40. Jimmy and Jay, I think, has a lot of potential. It seems a little forced. I don't necessarily get it as far as from a booking standpoint, but athletically, I think they're going to put on the closest thing you're going to see to an amazing lucha libre match that WWE can put on right now, or an X Division type match. Lots of upside there. Uh, but the match that I think is maybe not getting enough attention for possibly being an absolute classic must see. We'll be talking about this match for years. Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre for the World Championship. That match, both of these guys, incredible athletes. Drew McIntyre, maybe the most underrated big man athlete in the history of pro wrestling. The guy is Mike Awesome levels of athletic. Um, and these guys, I think they're gonna try to chop each other down, and they're gonna try to kill each other. And it's gonna be awesome.
Mike,
I'm really looking
awesome
forward.
reference. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy didn't get enough credit in his day.
No, God no.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so hey, let's jump to, okay, we've talked about this man earlier, in a different context, CM Punk. And I'm referenced the Ariel Helwani interview. Lots of folks talking about it for lots of good reasons.
Yeah.
CM Punk finally revealing his side of the story, not to Brawl Out 2022, he did tell Helwani that there's an NDA issue there he can't talk about, but no NDA
Yeah,
issue with the Wembley show all in last year. Lots of detail there. Um, when you so I can tell you, I'll say this first. When I heard it, it was like, okay, it confirmed a lot of what I'd kind of thought how probably had happened.
yeah,
The detail being what it is, it's so long. I don't know if I want to recap it here. The listeners out there who are paying attention to us talking about this already kind
yeah.
of know the story. And it's really involved. I will say, hey, if you want the details, I wrote a really long story. It was 3,500 words or so. Lots of quotes from CM Punk from that interview on Augusta Free Press, and I'll put a link on the both the podcast and the YouTube link here. But Josh, I wanted to get your thoughts when you heard the interview, saw the snippets of it. What were your first thoughts?
Hmm. Um, I think I referenced in a text message that it was. I was surprised at how much you know he peeled back the curtain on that situation and his AEW time being such a presence in for WWE right now and talking so candidly about that company. And the Wembley show, of course, the NDA exists um, for the Young Bucks issue and the Kenny Omega issue. Um, but at the same time, so what I took away from it being with such a lack of control at the top of AEW, there's no boss there, and he mentioned that very very clearly, and that's something I've become the more the longer the CM Punk saga continued in AEW, the more it was clear that there's nobody really in charge there. It's very, starting to feel about 2 years ago, starting to feel a lot like WCW in 1998 with, Kevin Nash booking shows and Hogan telling Eric Bischoff what the finish of matches are going to be. Um, and I don't blame CM Punk for growing so frustrated in his time there. And did he snap? Did he step over a line when he choked? You know, Jungle Boy. Maybe he did. I think he could have handled that differently. Maybe he could have not put his hands on him like that. But he was provoked, of course, and Jungle Boy did ask for it. Um, but there's no control. Like CM Punk, for it, and I believe his side of the story goes to Tony Khan, says, "Hey, get your boy under control. Or what are you going to do about this guy? You need to put some reins on him." And Tony Khan doesn't do anything. And there's nobody else backstage to go to because the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega don't want to help out CM Punk. Apparently they don't have the professionalism to go to Jack Perry and say, "Look, man, chill the fuck out. Like you can't say like just do your job and they don't try to start extra drama." And it ties back into it looks exactly the Jack Perry situation looked exactly like the Adam Page situation. Exact same. So you have to believe that CM Punk was being needled and pushed by that group of people. They were trying to elicit a response from him. They didn't like him for whatever reason. I think the reason was is that he came into the company and made the company 10 times more important than it had ever been. And I think they resented him for it. I think that's the core of the issue. Um, but yeah, it's changed my view of AEW. It's changed my view of Tony Khan. It's changed my view of me. I used to have this really staunch opinion that AEW was amazing for the wrestling business. I thought it was the best thing that happened to the wrestling business, and maybe that's still true. Maybe both things can be true at the same time.
I
But
want
it
to
needs to
think.
change.
Oh,
It needs
go
to
ahead. Go ahead.
change.
Go ahead. I
The
want to
co-
go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, you're fine. But for the company to continue to be a true alternative to WWE and something where the business can improve for the performers, for the fans, uh, in-ring product, whatever. It's got to be a situation to where it doesn't matter, how big the stars on the roster are. There's got to be someone who holds the heavy hand of authority backstage, running the company. Um, and keeping everybody going in the same direction versus where AEW literally they split internally with two different shows. Are you kidding me? You're just going to eliminate all these possibilities for awesome matches just
And they
because.
thought that, and Tony Khan thought that was the solution to the problem.
No, he's letting children pitch a fit is what he did.
Yeah, yeah. But he thought that would, hey, I get to have everybody here. We'll just keep you apart from each other. It didn't last a
But
week.
no, it doesn't. It's like in middle school, you got two like pissant little boys that think they want to be alpha dogs. All right, well you put them on other sides of the room, and eventually they're going to cross paths,
Yeah,
right? You got to figure out the solution
yeah.
to the problem, or somebody's got to go. Somebody's got to go. Yeah, CM Punk took his ball and went. I don't blame him. I don't blame him.
Until we started talking about this tonight. I mean, I've written a column about this and I did it earlier today, and I don't like to always, I don't like to inject myself into a story, but it kind of reminds me as I was listening to you talk, Josh. I think there could be a parallel. The company I worked in, AWE. I always get them mixed. AWE and AEW. I get them mixed up, but there's similarities here.
Yeah, yeah,
We had a 1 year run in 2011 where we actually ended up having a pay-per-view show. In some ways, our history could have mirrored AEW's. They had a pay-per-view before they had TV. We were told we were headed towards TV. We just needed to do
yeah.
this pay-per-view in October of 2011. So I say that to say our company had its downfall before we even got to TV because now I was an employee in this company. I want to clarify, this wasn't my company. I was in creative and did all kinds of work behind the scenes. Wrote formats and helped develop stories. Worked with guys, filming all the interviews, working with them on their interviews, as the case may be. Lots of fun, but. Um, the money guy was a guy in California who was largely an absentee owner until the week of the pay-per-view. And the other guy that I worked with who was ahead of me was a former WCW enhancement talent named Marvin Ward. And Marvin was, I mean, so he was sort of the Tony Khan of our company. He wasn't the money guy like Tony is. There were kind of two guys there, but Marvin was the guy that was sort of the boss of the 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 talent side, right? So the problem was with Marvin is as many connections as he had and as smart as he was about the creative part of things, he could let people roll him over very easily, just like Tony Khan can. And
Yeah.
we had laid out and worked with each of the performers individually for months how the show was going to play. And then weekend of the show, uh, they they being each of the individuals who were in the matches, tag team matches, six-man matches, singles matches, basically rewrote the show. And no one was there to tell them they couldn't because just like Tony Khan, my good buddy Marvin Ward, who I haven't seen in a few years, but man, we worked so close together for a long, long time. Marvin couldn't tell anybody no. And I can see that I can see Tony Khan through that lens. He can't tell anybody no. And it doesn't mean you're a weak. Okay, I'm getting ready to say it doesn't mean you're a weak person. I guess it does mean you're a weak person, but it's
In
it,
that
it.
sense, yeah, he's not meant to be well, at least like that. It's such a different mindset of a person to be a pro wrestler, and
Well, and
you are,
wrestlers are. I mean, when you bring in, we had for that show we had Kevin Nash, Diamond Dallas Page, Rock and Roll Express. Who else? Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I mean, among the name stars, Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, and then we had a lot of young guys we were trying to boost up. They're all in it. I mean, and I can't blame them for this. I'm not casting any aspersions, but they're all looking out for number one. Hey, I want to know what helps me either get over with a win or at least get over as a character. I'm going to be on TV. Don't make me look like a fool. And
right,
so
right.
they're all looking out for number one in that sense, and I can't blame them for that. But if there's no one to say, okay, yeah, you look out for yourself, but I'm looking out for the company, and that's what was missing in AWE. And I think it's what's missing in AEW is for someone to say, look, we're all part of the same team. And if we're going to get to the next TV contract in their case, or in our case, the first TV contract, we've got to be on the same team in some capacity. And Tony Khan, just like my buddy Marvin Ward, not able to make people see the bigger vision there.
Yeah. So let's wind it back. CM Punk came into AEW 2021, was it?
That's right. That's right. 2021. Yep.
Um, so we're coming out of the pandemic, and it was the biggest thing. I can remember clear as day that night when he came out on on Rampage. I To this day, one of the biggest moments of my adult wrestling life. I put it up there with Lesnar beating Taker, and I put it up there with I don't know. Those might be the two biggest ones. A single moment. I don't
Roll,
know.
I liked Rollins the cash in at the WrestleMania where he
Wrestle, yes,
won, but for this one for the CM Punk night, I had a living room full of people. We couldn't wait to see what happened that night. Yeah.
yeah, it was huge. Like there's like you said, and no, you haven't done that since or before. Like it's the biggest night. I mean, other than I don't know, maybe like the first AEW pay per view might, but even then that didn't hit culturally in
Yeah.
wrestling
Yeah.
like CM Punk coming back.
Yeah.
Um, and I and Tony Khan was he pulled it off. I don't know how much it cost him. I'm sure it cost a lot. I mean, it had to be in the three, four, five. It was a lot of money. And the guy hasn't put on a pair of boots and had at that point 10 years, but I don't know, not quite that long. But it was a smart. It was that was the smart business move to make. The problem was is that Tony Khan did it, uh, to my understanding, to the chagrin of the EVPs. Like they did not want CM Punk in the company, and they made that very clear from day one. They didn't want to work with the guy. That's why you had all these weird, okay matches for CM Punk early on, but nothing of substance. It wasn't until the MJF feud that CM Punk did anything of substance in AEW. I mean, the Moxley stuff was okay, but it was injury induced and stuff like that. But I think I remember it was one of the times we had text exchanges about like if they don't get this match in the ring, if they don't get Omega versus Punk in the ring,
Yeah.
AEW is just another TNA wrestling
Hmm.
with a bigger budget. And you know what? Look at them.
Yeah, they never did. We never got Omega. We never got CM Punk versus Bryan Danielson in a AEW ring.
Never got it. And that was I
Amazing
don't.
that they were there that long.
They were both of them were there that long. I don't even know if they were in the same ring like together. You
No.
never. The biggest match you got was Moxley versus Punk, which is great. I mean, that was well, the matches weren't great, but I mean, it was cool to see.
Yeah.
But the by far the best thing that CM Punk did in AEW was his the mic work, of course, was great for him and MJF, but the matches were excellent. He brought a lot more out of MJF than I thought MJF even had in him, which is maybe egg on my face for not thinking MJF could really perform at that level in the ring, but that was the highlight. And maybe the highlight of AEW to this point was CM Punk versus MJF, but it should have been CM Punk versus Kenny Omega. How do you not? That's as big a blunder, if not bigger, than WWE not getting Sting and Undertaker in the ring together. Like how? Why? What are you doing? What ego? What dumbassery has to come into play for that not to happen? Like
Yeah.
you're throwing away millions of dollars
Well,
just
and then
because.
after the brawl out issue, and so Punk has his triceps tear, has surgery, he's out for a while. I mean, and then they get him back. He's convinced to come back. All right, let's bury the hatchet. I don't even care if you like each other. You don't have to hold hands and sit there and sing Kumbaya, but
Yeah,
there's money to be made if you assholes can just get in a ring and fight it out. Like the old saying from Jerry Jarrett from way back in the day, personal issues draw money. We all know
yes,
there are personal issues here. So
they would
let's
have been
let's be professional and make money.
that one match after the brawl out. You could have sold that pay per view for $100.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could have had three matches on the whole card. Still, $100, easy.
And we would have
I
all
would,
watched it, and even those of us smart fans would be wondering, I wonder if they shoot.
yeah, and because Punk has that wonderful ability, and he's worked himself into a position in the wrestling business to be like, I don't know, man, that looked kind of real. I don't know. Did you hear what Punk said? I wonder what he really meant. Like, oh, what's the double entendre coming on with CM Punk?
Yeah.
And there's usually not. It's just everybody's like, he's just such an interesting character, and he's such a polarizing character. Probably, I don't know. He might be the most interesting man in the history of professional wrestling because everything he does draws attention. Everybody wants to know what's CM Punk doing. What did he mean by XYZ? Like, oh, he meant what he said. Usually,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of mystery to what he said, but he has that ability. He has that effect on especially people like us who have been following his career. And I've been watching CM Punk since '04, '05 was when I really came up to knowledge of him. I started getting Ring of Honor DVDs and really became a huge fan of his and Samoa Joe and early American Dragon and Homicide and the Briscoes way back when Ring of Honor was that era of Ring of Honor is probably my favorite. Like well, probably like '05 to 10. It's probably my favorite wrestling era of any company. The in ring product during that era was just second to none. Anyway, that's a sidebar. Um, oh God, what does AEW do though? I mean, now Tony Khan, something that hasn't really been. I haven't heard much discourse about it. Maybe Sean Ross Sapp or people like that have talked about this, but like, how does Tony Khan and AEW combat, CM Punk, you know, airing the dirty laundry and telling the truth about what it's like back or what it was at least like for CM Punk in AEW, the biggest wrestling star, in the past 20 years, being treated like that and having to compete with children and be treated so unprofessionally at AEW. Adam Copeland came out and he tried to give like a rally to the troops speech and God bless him, nicest guy in the world, but it doesn't matter. People didn't take it seriously. It's kind of people are kind of laughing at it more than listening to it at this point. So I don't know. I don't know what AEW does right now to help be taken seriously right now. That's something that I've been thinking about, and I don't have an answer for it.
Well, and this is a big year. This is the year the TV contract media rights are up. So this is a huge year in that respect. And it's supposed to be the year things pay off. All the investment for the last 5 years pays off.
Yes,
Um, and the numbers are what they are. The last couple of weeks around 750,000. That's still about half of what Raw gets. And if the
yeah, it's,
TV
it's really bad. Their TV numbers are pathetic, man.
They are
Like there's
well, but in the context of where Raw is and what Raw got from Netflix, which was an astounding amount of money,
yes,
500 million a year for 10 years. There's a 5 year out, but let's just say 500 million a year for 10 years. If if the marketplace values Raw at that, SmackDown got less because SmackDown's moving from Fox, which is got the cachet of Fox, and it's on more people's TVs than USA
yeah,
is, which is where SmackDown is going back to.
yeah. You
Um,
don't need a subscription to watch SmackDown, which
that's right. That's right. You can get it on digital if you want. You can watch it in lots of ways. But the marketplace would suggest AEW should be in range of about 150 to 200 million a year for its next TV deal. Um, but
what are they sitting at now? Like 50?
Around 50, yeah. They were at 43. They got a little bit of a bump when they added Collision, so it's maybe 60. But still, they're in line to get 2 to 3 times what they're getting now, and that would pay off. That would pay off Tony Khan's investment the last 5 years. But he's got to get it. And I thought about this, Josh. I thought about the Attitude Era when Eric Bischoff used Ted Turner's checkbook. So that's basically two people playing Tony Khan in one sense. In 95, 96, 97 to buy away all of WWE's guys. The response from Vince
Well,
McMahon was, I don't have anybody left, so we've got to do something different. And he took guys that were cast-offs from
mhm.
WCW, Mick Foley, Stone Cold, obviously, one guy that was a cast-off from within his own company, Rocky Maivia, and built around those guys and beat WCW at their checkbook game. Now,
Mhm.
that's the model if Tony Khan will be willing to follow it and able to follow it. You don't need to have names. You can create names. That's what Vince did in
Sure.
the mid 90s to save his company from probable ruin. Um, but that said, okay, that's what Vince did 20 25, almost 30 years ago. Um, Tony Khan's got to
And
find that inside of himself somehow.
so, and you talk about the Attitude Era and the things that really worked and that hooked people. Um, a lot of people will go back to say, "Oh, Stone Cold was what got the Attitude Era over." Not exactly. Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon got the Attitude Era in WWF over. Also, I don't think DX versus the Hart Foundation gets enough credit for launching the Attitude Era. I think that was vital, and maybe that's probably my favorite feud of the '90s was that even more so than Sting versus the NWO. DX versus the Hart Foundation was perfect. It was just my favorite. And I'm not even that big of a Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart fan, but that was to me was one of the greatest feuds in the history of pro wrestling. Um, but the other element of what really worked in the Attitude Era and what made WWF so different was a mixture of two things. Um, they said, we don't give a shit if kids are offended and parents are offended by what product we put on, what content we put on TV. WWF, they essentially took Jerry Springer scripts
Yeah.
and brought them to Monday night. That's one. And that it was Crash TV. Vince Russo, people can hate him all they want. The man, he got it right. And he knew how to get attention. He knew how to keep people talking about WWF TV. The second part is the performers themselves were able to put so much of themselves into their personas and their storylines and their gimmicks, their catchphrases. You had a guy that was Papa Shango mid card. Nobody cared about Kamala forever, but then he made himself into a pimp and brought out a bunch of strippers with him. He's one of the most famous characters of the '90s, right? You have Goldust. That was a created gay character for homoerotic character for Dustin Rhodes, but he knocked it out of the park. And he took that character places Vince McMahon never dreamed he could take that character. He pushed it with that character. Mick Foley did the same thing with Mankind. So letting if Tony Khan can somehow inspire the people on his roster to really create, to really dive deep and figure out who their characters are and what kind of stories they would like to tell, and then let them tell these stories with guidance, not with young buck approval, but that's something that maybe could change the business again and let AEW be different. If you can't, was it Eric Bischoff? He has a line. He's like, if you can't be bigger or better, be different than. So AEW a lot of times feels like WWF light, WWE life. Um, change it up, do something different, be different. Let your wrestlers be different, or maybe even go to your wrestlers and say, look, your shit is stale. Be different. Come up with something better. Do something better. Bring it to me, and we'll run with it. If it's wild enough, if it's different enough, I think that's something that AEW could do, and it wouldn't cost them a dime.
Well, there's that, and I think the CM Punk experiment going the way it did, it's time to retire the checkbook booking. Yeah, I don't, Mercedes Moné most recently, former Sasha Banks.
Yeah,
The checkbook hasn't really led to anything. He didn't use CM Punk right. He could have, he didn't. He's not used Adam Copeland right. He's booked Adam Copeland against a bunch of mid card guys, and I think the thought was, and I understand the thought. I'm going to use this guy to put these mid card guys into a different realm, but all it
yeah,
really does is it takes your star and turns him to a mid card guy. So, um,
right.
I fear that's what he's going to do with Mercedes Monet next. And so,
Well, she already is. I mean, her interest level, she has not garnered any difference of ratings whatsoever in AEW. Everybody knew she was coming. They had that huge Boston show for her, and it was a yawn. Like it was
well,
like okay,
same with Will Ospreay and Kazuchika
yeah,
Okada. I'm a Japanese wrestling nerd. I've watched
yeah,
those
yeah.
guys for years. I'm as excited as crap that they're there, but they haven't moved the needle in the slightest.
You're like the point oh one percenter of wrestling fans in the
But that's
grand
who he's
scheme of
booking
things.
towards. I mean,
And
he
it doesn't. Yeah. Well, that's the point I was kind of getting to is like Do I love to see Takeshita? Do I love to see Okada? Yeah, these guys are amazing. Do I love to see the CMLL guys? The CMLL guys. Do I love to see the luchadors? Yes. Penta Penta Santo is probably he's one of my favorite wrestlers on the face of the planet. And they could have done a lot different. That's just or even Commander. Commander, better example than Penta. Commander might be, he's Rey Mysterio on speed, but it doesn't. It's good for a couple shows. It's good for a couple matches. It doesn't tell a story.
You got to
There's
tell a
no long
story. Yeah,
term,
you got to get us invested in them.
and that's yeah. So it's like back to the point of like New Japan, Okada, Takeshita. Ah, yeah, they're legendary figures, amazing athletes. Yes, they should be on national, worldwide TV, but there's a language problems, and you've got to figure out how to make them relevant to the broader United States audience. And I think that's also where AEW there's a huge difference between AEW and WWE. The AEW they take this independent. So Orange Cassidy, great example, created a gimmick, really well thought out, really well presented on the indies. Fine, let's put it on TV, and that's all it's been. It's been exactly what Orange Cassidy created, in GCW and IWE, and they put it on TV. Same thing with Osprey. He
Mhm.
created his thing, and you just put it on TV. There's no character development. There's nothing new. They're not growing these people. MJF is the only person that's grown in
And
that
and they
company.
and then they turned him into a babyface for some reason. Which
Yeah.
not using him the best, but as a New Japan fan, what I loved about New Japan was the matches.
Yes.
What you don't watch New Japan for is the interviews because there are
No.
none. There's
Yeah.
no character development. They're just really good wrestling matches,
Yeah.
and that's fine for that niche. I'm in the niche. Um, but even I would like to see some character development. I want to see two guys wrestle each other, not because they're two good wrestlers and they will put a 5-star match on. I want to see two guys who are pissed off at each other,
Yep.
or two guys who both want to be the champion. Only one of them can be. As Jim Cornette and Jim Ross both say, one of these guys is going to make money and one's not. And the way to determine who makes money is who wins. And
Yep.
that's what you want to see. You want to see
Yes.
people who don't like each other, who are grappling over stuff. And too many times it's just about, can we put on a very entertaining match? Well, that's great. You can put on entertaining matches, but
Yes.
you appeal to me. But do you appeal to? Obviously, they don't appeal to 2 million people because they're not getting 2 million people to watch the shows.
No, they're not. And the money is slowing down. The T-shirt sales are slowing down. The only thing that's really hot for AEW is the toy market. Um, the, sorry, and this is hard for me because in some ways because I have gone to bat for them for so many years, just saying like they're learning. They're going to figure it out. It's going to work. There's so much upside to AEW. There's so much potential. It's just you've got to get all the pieces together. Then you've got to. I just kept on making excuses for them. I'm over it. I'm a pissed off fan at this point. I'm a scorned fan.
You're a
If
scorn
you if
fan.
yeah, because like I'm tired of rooting for these guys, and it's the same shit year after year, and then it keeps on getting worse. Like this devil thing they did. At first, it was hot, it was cool, it was different. Turning MJF's creation against him. There was some cool stuff to it, but then, oh, Adam Cole, are you kidding me?
And plus, he's
Like his
hurt.
wife, his wife, and he's hurt,
And he's hurt. He can't even do
and
anything
he's
about
hurt.
it.
Even when the guy's perfectly healthy, he's like it's like sending Jungle Boy out there. Like, I'm gonna take the championship from you. And like, no, you're not. You're not doing shit. Like, it's just
Yeah, yeah.
it was a boy. It's boring. It was so boring. Like so, but I digress. There are some things that are possible upsides for long term growth and change in AEW. They've there's change at the top. They brought in some creative director, head of talent relations, people from WWE,
A new
long term
COO who can help run a business, which is helpful.
a new COO. Yeah, so there's some positive changes there, and they're laying off people. and this is another thing that's people getting a little twisted. People try to throw Tony Khan's words in his face, where it's like, I'm never going to lay anybody off. Well, the deal was with the 10 people that they did let go of, were people that were barely on TV to begin with, and two, it was mutual agreements. Like they agreed. Like I don't know who else they talked to. I haven't heard about that. I imagine there's more people that decided they would rather stay with AEW than go back to the Indies. But that was the deal. That was the conversation. Was okay. We're going to give you the opportunity to go. Do you think you could better yourself going back to GCW? Do you think you could better yourself if you tried your hand at TNA or MLW or something like that? That was the situation with those layoffs or mutual partings is probably the better terminology for that for what happened this past week. So
Yeah.
and it
I
was
am
nobody of consequence either.
It's nobody of consequence. I'm gonna I can feel where you are in terms of being the frustrated fan, the scorn fan. I want to stay on the side of okay, I'm not defending anymore like I had for years. But I'm going to hold out hope. And I was thinking about this because you texted something, Josh, to me to that effect of, you're a frustrated fan, and I'm thinking, well, okay, yeah, I'm frustrated too, but it's only 5 years into it, and I say only five because I think about, you know, for all the bad stuff that we've known about Vince McMahon in the last few months. Okay, I'm acknowledging that. I'm not overlooking that at all. Looking back at the 80s when Vince McMahon took over his father's company, a lot of people like to say, well, Tony's just spending his father's money. Well, so was Vince. Um,
Well, he
uh,
was spending a lot of other people's money too. That's another thing about Vince McMahon that people don't want
yeah,
that hasn't been talked about from his early years. And it's slowly coming out, but he was in debt and into the mid '90s, and when
yeah.
people talk about WWE almost went under, it wasn't because of the steroid trial. No, it was because he was having a hard time paying off his debts, and so WWE almost went bankrupt in '93,
Well,
'94.
and his dad gave him a sweetheart deal to buy the company in '82, and that was years after,
He
you
gave
know,
him a sweetheart deal, and then he broke the deal with his dad.
yeah,
Saying by then going like he went and like bought everybody's TV markets, the exact thing
yeah.
that his dad told him not to do.
Not to do. Yeah, it promised other promoters he would not do. So all that said, it still took Vince. We think of Vince coming out fully formed in '83 and in '84, the 40th anniversary, as you noted, of WrestleMania, of Hulkamania, and then '85 WrestleMania. But there were years leading up to that where Vince was having to prove himself to his father. He
Yeah,
he he took over some civic center in Northeast to show, hey, I can run a business, Dad. So it took
and
Vince
well, there was a
years.
hockey company. Yeah, there was a
Yeah,
hockey
hockey.
team
Yeah,
involved
hockey.
in it.
Yeah, it took Vince Jr. years to prove himself to the point where then we saw the fully formed Vince that became the successful
Yeah,
Vince. And so Tony Khan, everything he's done, fortunately, unfortunately, has been in public. It's been in the internet era. It's been in front of people, and we can
yes,
dissect every move he made. Whereas Vince did not have that scrutiny back in the late '70s
true.
into the early '80s. And so
That's very true.
I want
He's
to
learning on
think
the job.
he's
He's
learning
learning
on the
on the
job in
job.
front of us, right?
He's learning on the job on Twitter. Like
On
that's, I mean,
Twitter.
it's like his
He
live
needs to get
streaming.
off Twitter.
Yeah, well, he's an idiot. Yeah, he's kind of doing some Trump moments with some tweets recently, but
He needs to stay
yeah,
away from social. Keep the phone away. But no, I'd like to think he's a young enough guy, probably a smart enough guy. I want to think that he can if he can survive himself, if he can get this next TV deal, maybe in 5 years we'll look back and say, okay, he got over the hump. He did what he needed to do instead of what I keep thinking, Josh. I keep thinking he's had a few jump the shark moments, and I want to see him survive those. So,
yeah. Well, and here's another thing that's um, if you're AEW and you're listening to smart advice, you don't want to try and do anything big right now. You don't want to do anything big in the next couple weeks, even. So you don't want to try and compete with WWE
yeah,
during Mania season or the fallout of WrestleMania season. You want to wait a little bit if you're going to make any big moves. If you're going to try and garner some attention, you want the seas to calm down, that kind of a thing. So there will be space for them to make noise, make moves, to improve product and get attention, do things storyline wise. Maybe MJF comes back They can re-kick some stuff there, do some uh, put Will Ospreay in more of a main event mode. Um, I love Samoa Joe, love him, one of the greatest performers of all time, near and dear to my heart. But his I think his time as champion has passed. I think it would be good for someone else a little bit younger. Sorry, Joe, but a little bit better on the mic to be world champion right now. So I think that would be in AEW's best interest. So Will Ospreay versus Samoa Joe to me has all the makings of of an amazing match and a great match to send Samoa Joe off with. And then maybe you can move Will Ospreay into feuding with Bryan Danielson, Mox. Maybe put Mox back in the world title scene. Finally, break up the BBC, which is or that's so BC. I hate that thing. It's
It's
just
such a
you're
waste of those guys. Yeah, yeah,
you're handicapping three amazing talents.
yeah.
Are they choosing this, or is this Tony Khan? Because I cannot imagine that the Dragon and Mox and Claudio enjoy this like lazy team atmosphere or just mid card kind of middling
They should be wrestling
directionless.
each other like every other week, man.
Yes. Well, and I think I said to you, and this is one if Tony Khan could listen to me right now, if he could listen to two things from me, I would tell him, look, man, put Claudio with Don Callis and Takeshita, make that a crew. Claudio becomes world champion. He's your world champion. He's your massive nasty heel world champion, unbeatable, almost like a Brock Lesnar level athlete kind of a guy. Then you go and you have Brian Danielson and John Moxley try to kill each other for 6 months,
Yeah.
and that would be amazing. And you could play off of that both of those things immensely. I think Don Callis he's been used pretty well in AEW, but there's a lot of money being left on the table with him, in my opinion.
Well, he's not talking enough. Yeah. I mean,
Yes,
you need more talkers. You need more people to talk people into the seats for good and bad reasons, mostly bad. They want to see you get your head kicked in.
yes.
He's great at that, but they don't use him enough. And
No, Don Callis is as good as Paul Heyman. Like, I'll say that to anybody. I think there's enough evidence to back it up too. He is as good of a talker and getting people just livid as Paul Heyman. It's amazing.
and I would have fewer factions if I could say one thing, fewer factions because factions make it so that it's hard to have matches. If you have five guys in one faction, that's five guys who can't wrestle each other.
Right.
And
And
I want
and and sorry,
no
but
go.
utilize Ring of Honor more because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
there's so many guys that are on TV in AEW. They're they're good wrestlers, they're good performers, but they're not ready. They're not seasoned. That's what Ring of Honor should be. That's what Ring of Honor should be used for. And then put Dalton Castle on AEW. What are you
Dalton
doing?
Castle, yeah.
The guy's amazing. He's
I
one of the
love
best
Dalton
performers
Castle.
in the world. But he's being hidden in Ring of Honor for some reason. What do you do? Why do they hate him so much?
The whole thing about Ring of Honor being on the Honor Club behind a paywall. I actually used to watch the YouTube shows, the Elevation and Dark Elevation,
I did too.
because
Yeah.
I loved watching the young talents wrestle against the mid card guys. Mid card guys get some wins,
Yes.
and you get to see them kind of develop. Ring of Honor being hidden makes no sense, and plus I mentioned I'm watching the pay-per-view tomorrow night. I have no idea what the matches are, what the stories are. I don't care.
Yeah,
I just want
sure.
to see the performers wrestle. But
Right.
if you could watch them more easily, you would watch them. There's good people there.
I'm
They're
almost
hidden.
I'm grasping. I know even the world title match is Eddie Kingston versus Martin Briscoe, is it?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
That's a fine match. It's interesting, but again, it's like there's what's other unless you are just unless you're just a huge Mark Briscoe fan or a huge Eddie Kingston fan. I mean, are you
yeah.
gonna really spend the 2 3 hours on that? I don't know. Probably not.
I'm only thinking well, and I'll have two TVs in my living room. I'll have the women's Final Four on one, and I'll
Oh
have
yeah,
Ring of Honor on the other. And if the matches look compelling, I'll turn the volume up on the match. If the basketball game's a blowout, I might turn it up on the match too. But yeah, that's not a good thing. I mean, for your Super Card of Honor, it's one of your big shows of the year. So hey, I think I got us in trouble with the wives here. I promise. 30 at most 45 minutes. I'm looking at the clock. We're an hour and 15 in. So
It's very easy to do. Yes.
it's easy to do. We had two good topics and we expanded upon them. So last thoughts. Okay, I guess we kind of summed it up well when we talked about WrestleMania particularly. That's the focus this weekend. Cody for the win. I think we're both agreeing on that.
I think so. That's what I want to have happen.
Yeah.
I think it's the smart play right now. Um, it's going to be a lot of TV time to get there, but I'll try to drink a cup of coffee around 7 or 8 so I can last till 11:30. Hopefully that's when the match ends. I got to work on Monday. Gosh, I wish I'd have these things in the afternoon. I'm such an old man. Like start these things at 2 o'clock. Jeez. But uh, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's Mania. I'm excited about it. I've oh, my dog is yelling at somebody. Um, no, I mean it's a good card, and it's one of the better like up and down like wrestling quality wrestling cards that I think WWE has put out in a long time. Even the women's, Becky versus Rhea, a lot of potential there. Great storytellers. Rhea Ripley has really grown as a storyteller, as an actor in the ring, and Becky Lynch, I think, in my opinion, is the best women's wrestling performer. She may not be the best wrestler, but I think she's the best women's performer today. I'm really looking forward to that one. Of course, LA Knight, AJ Styles, Jay, and then the tag team scramble. I'm really glad about them having such a huge tag team scramble championship match for WrestleMania.
Should be a fun weekend, and we'll get back together next week and we'll recap it all and get you moving forward from there. As Sabrina, the
Makes a
lovely
run in.
amazing run-in. Yeah, there we go. Previewing the weekend of run-ins for us here in the wrestling business. Hey, Josh, thanks for your time. We'll talk again next week, man.
All right, man. See ya.